Latest internet fad has people eating rotten meat to get high.
You get high off eating rotten meat?
I guess it reminds me of that one SpongeBob. It's not tainted meat; it's painted meat.
You just get so fucking sick you wish you were gonna die.
Let's see. Internet fads and memes are usually pretty harmless, but sometimes they cross into genuinely dangerous territory. For example, take the Tide Pod eating thing that plagued social media some time back. But this latest thing leaves Tide Pods in the dust. It's not only potentially more dangerous, but also infinitely more disgusting. Apparently, some people have gotten it in their heads that it's a good idea to eat raw spoiled meat. And we're not talking about a steak that went old a couple days ago either. This is about meat that's in advanced stages of decomposition. We're talking about meat that's green and brown and swarming with bacterial colonies. You know, the genuinely rotten stuff that wouldn't look at a place on a death metal album cover. Some of these people claim that they just prefer their meat a little bit decomposed. They say that it just tastes better that way. I mean, who thinks this? But others are after a special kind of high that you can supposedly get from this high meat, as they call it. Reportedly, the rotten meat produces a sense of euphoria after consumption. We're going to go out on a leg here and say that's probably because you're experiencing some kind of food poisoning previously unknown to science. But could it be that there's actually something to high meat? Can you really get high from eating a rotten chunk of beef? According to Singaporean dietitian Naras Lapsus, it is possible that consuming decomposed meat could produce an altered state of consciousness, but that's generally not a good thing. If you're leaving meat out of anything from days to months to years, who knows what kind of bacteria are going to grow? And some of those bacteria might have chemical properties that are going to give you a high or hallucination or feeling of euphoria, Lapsus told Vice. So yes, you might start feeling all kinds of weird things when the indescribable things growing on your rotten steak start attacking your system. That said, there's absolutely no scientific evidence you can get high from eating high meat, but there's plenty of evidence you could seriously mess up your stomach or worse. Lapsus says eating spoiled meat is a lucky dip. You might get high or you might start spewing the contents of your stomach out of your orifices you didn't even know could do that. Letting meat spoil or rot is completely uncontrollable process, so you just don't know what kinds of bacteria could be growing on the meat. There's all sorts of bacteria, Salmonella, Shigella, E. coli, all of these things that our human body might really struggle with breaking down. If we're eating rotten foods, the question is, will our stomach acids do a good enough job to stop them from poisoning us? And the answer is often no, he explained. And when your stomach fails, you usually get food poisoning. In case you're lucky enough to have never experienced that before, it comes with an absolutely hilarious list of symptoms, including dehydration, explosive vomiting, volcanic bowel movements, and potential damage to your large intestine. If you're particularly unlucky, you might get botulism. It's an illness where certain foodborne bacteria start creating nerve toxins inside your body. Symptoms of botulism usually start with the weaknesses in the muscles that control the eyes, face, mouth, and throat. This weakness may spread to the neck, arms, torso, and legs. Botulism can also weaken the muscles involved with breathing, which can lead to difficulty breathing and even death. So, I mean, it goes on, but yeah, I just thought it was weird that, anyone would, first of all, even try rotted meat. And the fact that, like, some people are saying they get a sense of euphoria from it, or even just prefer the taste to cooked meat. It seems weird to me.
Yeah. Who are these frontiersmen of getting high? Like, you can get high off weed, you can drink alcohol, you can do anything, but who are these people who are like, no, none of this is the kind of high I'm looking for. I'm going to try some weird...
rotten meat.
Yeah, like that's... How do you even know that's a high you want? I mean, I would think the person who tried the rotten meat the first time, it was an accident. It must have been, right? Like,
well, I mean, certain animals will, so I mean, maybe if you were desperate, you might...
Yeah, like desperate. Maybe you're homeless or something like that.
I mean, I think humans have like a pretty concentrated acid in our stomachs, but still, I don't know.
I do sometimes wonder, like you were saying, like how people find out that certain things get you high. Like even like tobacco, like in marijuana. I'm guessing like there was a fire and people inhaled the smoke and figured it out. I'm guessing because who would actually think about like rolling it up and like smoking it into your lungs?
Heating, all that stuff. Yeah,
and then like those like toads you can lick and get high from? Like, who was the pioneer that was like, hey, there's like that foam coming out of that frog. I'm going to lick that and see what happens. You know? So weird.
No, but you know what? There are scientists who like do taste things to like, you know, they were able to find certain diseases in people like in the early 19th century where they would taste their urine and they would find out if they had diabetes or something. I'm not sure, something like that. They would be able
There
to,
are some. Yeah, I have heard some different ones.
I think poop was also something that was tasted too.
There's probably some poop taster somewhere.
The piss taster. I don't know if you're ill, but you've been having a lot of asparagus.
Aerate. Vanilla. I was thinking I had a couple lines of thought during this post, but I remember reading like an article or maybe I think it was like a chapter in a book where apparently like people who were taking slaves from Africa, like there's a picture like in one of these, I don't know if it's like a woodcut or something, where like the guy was like licking the slaves before they put them on the ship.
Oh.
And someone was like kind of like wondering if they were maybe tasting for salt because maybe they'd have a better chance of surviving if they retained salt or something. But then it was like linking into being a possible reason why like American blacks have higher chances of having hypertension.
Oh.
Like it was a weird thread, but
Wait, what were they doing?
so they taste their skin for salt. And like, well, this was the hypothesis because he couldn't figure out why they would be doing it, and they were using it as some kind of method to determine who to take and who not to take.
Weird.
Or it was just a really weird guy.
Yeah.
Like,
This creep show.
God damn it, Jeff. Again.
Yeah, Licky. Fucking Licky McGee over there.
We got a good one, boss.
Some other guy's
Real
like,
salty.
I gotta get this.
The slave's like, low.
you're gonna lick me.
If you're gonna enslave
Looking
me,
for
at
some
least
salt.
at least give me something.
I was also watching, this is a different thread, but what was that guy who did, was it Bizarre Foods?
Andrew Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Zimmerman, yeah. And there's at least like one or two episodes where he ate like some traditional dish, but it would have rotted meat in it. And it's like one of the few things where you could tell he was pretty grossed out. But apparently, I mean, is a thing somewhere. But I mean, there's also like ways of making alcohol out of rotting stuff. Like I know, like rotting fish and different things. Like
Oh, they make alcohol out of everything.
but yeah, that's got to be nasty as fuck.
Yeah.
So yeah, or you get like people who eat those like 1,000-year-old eggs or whatever they're called.
1,000-year-old eggs?
Well, they're not really 1,000 years old, but they bury them and they let them
Oh.
ferment, and it's just nasty.
yeah,
Anything fermented. I'm not-
yeah. I had a college class once with this Asian guy, and like he was talking about how like where he's from, like people will fill barrels with like I know it had milk in it and maybe something else. And they would basically just like bury them in the ground, let them ferment for a long time, and then dig them up and drink. And he said it was fucking nasty.
People will do anything to get drunk.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, so nasty.
Oh. So I mean, that was to get drunk. They did that. The milk.
I mean, it was alcohol. Yeah, it fermented. And
Now, part of me is also like, what's the line between that and like aged meat? Because people say like aged steaks are delicious, which I mean, I think basically you dry them out and then they get like a moldy crust on the outside, and then they just cut off the outside and cook it up, and people say that's delicious.
Yeah, it costs a fortune. That stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you need the time and the space to condition it, and then like you're cutting a chunk of it off and
I think
throwing
they
it away.
put like tons of salt all over it and stuff.
Yeah. So. I'd like to try one.
I'd be nervous to try it. I think if it was like okay to buy like the Food and Drug Administration.
Well, yeah, I mean they sell them in like butcher shops and like fancy restaurants and stuff. So I mean, I'm sure they're fine. But
yeah, I'll try it then.